Good morning. And welcome to May 5th, also known as Cinco de Mayo, and the day after, May the 4th be with you. I am Amy Firestein, and on this wonderful merry month of May, I share leadership of today's service with our guest, the Reverend John Cullinan. Whether joining us online or in person, we are glad you have chosen to spend your morning with us. Whoever you are, whatever you do for a living, whomever you love, wherever you live, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg as we celebrate the transformative power of religious community. You are all welcome to join us downstairs for fellowship and coffee. For those in person, we will be in our common room. For those online, there was a Zoom invitation in this morning's service email.
You are beloved, and you are welcome here. Whether tears have fallen from your eyes this past week or gleeful laughter has spilled out of your smiling mouth, whether you are feeling brave or brokenhearted, defiant or defeated, fearsome or fearful, whether you have untold stories buried deep inside or stories that have been forced beyond the edges of comfort, whether you have made promises, broken promises, or are renewing your promises, whatever is on your heart, however it is with your soul in this moment, you are beloved and you are welcome here. In this space of welcome and acceptance, commitment and recommitment, of covenant and connection. Let us worship together on this beautiful morning.
Podium briefly with co-chair Anita Menser, co-chairs of the Annual Stewardship Campaign and Next Gen Campaign. Those are two separate campaigns, and I want to thank the congregation for your enthusiasm and acceptance and commitment. It's been great doing this. We're winding up very shortly, if not today. In particular, I want to thank our canvassers. If there's any canvassers here, I'll ask you might stand for a moment and be identified. And you know, as far as I'm concerned, you can keep standing until the benediction. So, our annual stewardship goal was $345,000, and I'm happy to announce that we've reached $349,000. And you probably know stewardship goal means that's our budget for the next fiscal year. So we look like we're solvent. We have an annual meeting on May 17th. And I want to show that we got an award last night from World Headquarters in Boston. I brought it with me this morning. In recognition of our work. So, then the big news is the 3-year Next Gen campaign. That's a refurbishment campaign of the church. You've all heard lots about this. Our goal there was $690,000, and I'm proud to say we've reached $839,000. Now we've met both goals, and I want to let you know that both these awards will be on either side of the bidet, which will be in our newly refurbished gender-inclusive restroom. And any sexual imagery these awards may evoke in the more prurient-minded of you, I assure you that's purely happenstance. And now my co-chair, our co-chair, Anita.
Today who are going to bookend this campaign. We started out with a cheer, and we're going to finish with a cheer. And I have a number of children who are going to come up and young people who are going to come up and help me out with this. When I was in the classroom, we always said, when the kids were doing something really wonderful, is give yourself a pat on the back. And I think today, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg needs to give themselves a pat on the back. This has been really wonderful, meeting all of you and having you respond. So just give me a minute here. We're going to set up, and grown-ups, you're going to help me too.
So excited, I forgot it was my part. I would like you all to join me in reading aloud our covenant. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
sad eyes. Don't be discouraged, oh, I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all, and the darkness inside you makes you feel so small.
You can be amazing, you can turn a phrase into a weapon or a drug. You can be the outcast or be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. But I wonder what could happen
Our story this morning comes from Denise Tracy on our worship website at the UUA. A story called Give Yourself, a story about Ralph Waldo Emerson. What do you want for your birthday? The father asked his daughter. Do you want a doll? She wrinkled her nose and scrunched her eyes and thought, no. A tea set? A pony? No, Father, I have a year to think. I want this year to be a special year, so one to remember. All right, you think about it and you let me know. Ellen thought. She thought of bonbons, chocolate, new dresses, hats, kid boots, books, gloves, lace collars, but none of these were what she wanted. What would be special? Each day, her father would ask her, Ellen, do you know what you want for your birthday yet? And Ellen would shake her head. No, Father, I'm still thinking. And after another few days, her father asked, "Now, Ellen?" "Yes, Father, I have decided." "Well?" "I have a riddle," she said. "It will tell you what gift I want for my birthday. The riddle is this: you cannot buy it, for it is worth all the money you have, but only you can give it." I need to repeat this riddle because it will tell me what gift you want for your birthday. I cannot buy it because it is worth all the money that I have, but only I can give it. Is that right? "Yes, Father." "Well, now it's my turn to think about your riddle. I have to find the perfect present in the mystery." Her father paced and pondered. He repeated the riddle over and over in his head. "I cannot buy it, I can only give it. I cannot buy it, I can only give it." He paced and he pondered some more, and finally he smiled. "I know what she wants." Now he had to think about how to give it. When Ellen's birthday came, there was no present wrapped from her father, and she didn't expect one. After she had opened the presents from her brother and sister, from her mother and her grandmother, and after the cake was all gone and the celebration was over, Ellen's father said, "And now it's time for your present from me. Come sit with me." So Ellen climbed into the armchair and sat on her father's lap. "My present to you is very special. I hope it's what you wanted, because it's not a book or a toy or clothes, but instead it is a present from me that is for all seasons and for each day. This year, your birthday present from me is that we will spend time together every week, just the two of us. For you are my very special daughter, and I love you dearly." Ellen hugged him. "I knew you would figure out the riddle." Her father said, "You cannot buy it, for it is worth all the money you have, but only you can give it." It took me a long time to figure out the answer, but when I did, I knew what gift you wanted. And the answer was simple. Give yourself. "Oh, Father, I wanted a gift to make this year special, and time together with you will make this year the very best of my life." Ellen looked into her father's eyes and asked, "Why are you crying?" "You teach me more than any book I've ever read or written," he said. "By giving you time, I will gain more than I give." It was Ellen's turn to figure out this riddle. How could her father, by spending time with her, get more than she gave? She thought she knew. Love multiplies. But perhaps she would only understand when she was older, when she had children of her own. But her father understood. And when he wrote an essay on giving, he wrote, "Give yourself," for he knew the wonder of this gift.
Children, we invite you down to your classes. The Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is always a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by us. Each month, we share half of our Sunday plate with a local nonprofit organization. For the month of May, we are sharing with the Community Checkup Center, or CCC. CCC is a nonprofit health center providing quality care to Harrisburg's diverse and underserved children and adults. Underserved. It's been a morning already. CCC strives to partner with other health and nonprofit organizations to support patients and their neighborhoods. If you wish to contribute online, please visit uchbg.org homepage for options. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please consider giving what you are able. As you have so graciously given, we graciously receive. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, let it go, let it go. I now invite you to let go of your sorrows and share your joys. Please come forward to place a stone in the bowl, to light a candle, or to write out your joy or sorrow in the back. For those online, please feel free to share your joy or sorrow in the chat. If you are sharing a stone or lighting, please go up the aisles, come down the middle, and then when you are done, please go back up the aisles. I place one last stone in the bowl for any of joys or sorrows that were not shared or spoken. I have 2 joys to share this morning. One from Marilyn McHenry. My granddaughter, Imogene Gross, is being honored as a distinguished alumni at Harrisburg Community College, whose graduation is on Tuesday. And I share another anonymous joy and sorrow of sorts. Praying for peace and wisdom for my daughter who just turned 21 and is learning new boundaries and frontiers.
Please join with me for a moment in a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, beloved source of all love, we have come together this morning with gratitude for this time out of time which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to our own selves, to each other, to our communities, and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. May we gain the wisdom in this time to see those things which bear the mark of the eternal. Giving invested in others without expectation of return. Love transformed into action. Labor done in service of our callings. Justice sought without regard for consequence. May we come to find deeper meanings in each and every day. May we be lifted up in deeper love, in higher resolve, and in greater commitment. Beloved, may we hold a place open in the circle for the one who has not yet found their way in. May that which sustains us within these walls fuel a beacon in our hearts, lighting the way for all who are seeking. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving light the shape of justice. Whose holy goes, brings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The parable of the Good Samaritan. An expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" He answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." And he said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this, and you will live." But wanting to vindicate himself, he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell into the hands of robbers, who stripped him, beat him, and took off, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, while traveling, came upon him, and when he saw him, he was moved with compassion. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, treating them with oil and wine. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, 'Take care of him, and when I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" He said, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
The young lawyer, there we go. The young lawyer walked home from his encounter with Jesus that day, feeling a little distressed, like he had received an answer to his question, but also the question hadn't really been answered after all. He felt more like he had been challenged instead. No, like he had been accused of something. And it didn't sit well with him at all. He got more and more bothered as he walked down the road. It started as a little itch in the back of his skull, and by the time he got home, it was a full-on burning in his head, and he wondered, where had he gone wrong? And as he ate his dinner that evening, it dawned on him, maybe I asked him the wrong question. Yeah, that's it. Maybe if I can think of what the right question is, I can ask him and he can give me some kind of a complimentary parable that will clarify what I think I'm missing in this situation. Yeah, that's what I need. And so he scarfed the rest of his dinner down and he set back out on the road to where he had met with Jesus. And he found him that evening sitting around the campfire with his disciples, discussing the day that they had had. And Jesus saw him walking towards him again. "You're back." Yes, Rabbi. Yes, I am back. And I have a problem. You see, I understand what you were trying to tell me in the story, to love the Samaritan as I love myself. And I gotta admit, Rabbi, that's hard for me to grasp a little bit. I mean, I know some Samaritans, and I have trouble loving them, what with all the outcastedness and uncleanliness and what have you. But at the same time, I have love in my life. I have a lot of love in my life. I love my family. And I try to do well to take care of them and support them. And I like my neighbors. And I try to, do right by them, or at the very least not get in their way with anything. But I'm not sensing that I've really felt this love you're describing, Rabbi. And I start to wonder to myself, if I'm not loving my neighbors the way you're describing, am I really loving myself? How do I love myself, Jesus? How do I love myself? I don't suppose you've got another Samaritan parable that you could share with me that would help answer these questions? And Jesus sighed. He said, "Look, this is not an on-demand service, kid, okay? The parables are very carefully crafted allegorical stories that try to impart a specific message and challenge the ways we think about the world. I can't just pull one out of a bag for you. And the lawyer started to walk home, and Jesus said, no, don't walk off just yet. I think I might have an answer for you. Why don't you come sit down with us, and let's see if we can figure out what we're trying to get at here. Now, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit this morning. I am the young lawyer in this particular gospel sequel that I've just made up. Because that has been my struggle in recent years, in that great commandment equation. Love your neighbor as yourself. And I get the loving your neighbor part. But sometimes, especially in all these years of isolation that we have encountered, sometimes the loving myself bit gets to be a little harder. I don't know quite how to do it. And I wondered, why is there no parallel parable? Why did he only ask the question about the neighbors? Because we're missing the balance here. And so I set off on a quest to see if I could pull one out of the threads of the universe. How do I love myself? The first thing we've got to understand is the love of self that Jesus is talking about in the parable, and that's in the great commandment that shows up in Deuteronomy, and then in that Matthew story of the parable of the Good Samaritan. That love is not an egotism. That self-love is not an egotism. It is not a sense of rugged, I'm an island individualism. It is that wholehearted, whole body, whole community, agape love that the Greeks love to talk about, all-encompassing. Because in the ancient times, especially when Jesus was speaking, there was a very different concept of what the self was. I mean, there was a sense of a person as an individual, to be sure, but it was always an individual in relationship with some sort of community, the individual in relationship with the tribe, the individual in relationship with the nation or the family, the individual in relationship with the neighborhood. Who is my neighbor? So what Jesus is doing in the parable, in the story of the Good Samaritan, is trying to expand people's minds about what the size of the neighborhood is. The moral of the story is, hey guys, could we be maybe a little less parochial about how we're setting ourselves apart from others? Let's expand that notion. Let's talk about the neighborhood, the big one. Want for the neighborhood. Want what is best for the neighborhood, as much for others as you want for yourself. That was the idea of the individual in those times. And then 2,000 years pass, and modernity happens, and all of a sudden, we are islands. We are rugged individuals. I am me, and I am only me. And yes, there are other people, but I am my most important concern. I am separate from everything. We're still all connected. It doesn't matter how much we say, I am separate from everything. But that's the mindset we are trained into in the culture today. I'm it. I'm all that is. Take care of myself. Let others take care of themselves. And I think we've seen, especially in the last several years, the harm to community that comes about when we get too settled in that mindset. when we declare ourselves separate and independent from the communities that we are part of and that sustain us. We see complete breakage in communities. We see the isolation we all went through during the pandemic. It was so easy to get caught off from others. And settling into that mindset, the deeper we go, we can start to see perhaps the harm that we do to our own selves when we buy too much into that sense of separation. Because when I'm alone with my own thoughts, and I don't know about all of you, self-doubt starts to creep in a little bit. And then perhaps that's followed by some self-criticism. Yeah. And maybe that criticism starts to turn into some self-loathing. That's been my struggle. That's been my impetus looking for this second Samaritan parable. Because, yeah, I have an inner critic voice. It is a colossal jerk. I'm hearing some identification with that idea. And I buy too much into that story. I start telling myself about how I just hate myself and everything I do. To the point where, my imposter syndrome starts developing its own case of imposter syndrome, and the spiral keeps going downward and downward. To the point where, instead of wanting for others what I want for myself, because sometimes the loving my neighbor part is easier than the self-love, I find myself wanting more for others than I can allow myself to admit to myself, to give to myself, to spend that time with myself. Jesus said to the young lawyer, all right, I don't have a second Samaritan story for you today. I'm very sorry. But I do have a story. This is a story about another rabbi, a rabbi by the name of Hillel, a very good friend of mine. And one day he was sitting out in the square, and a couple of soldiers from our Roman occupiers walked by, and they knew he was a great expert in the Jewish law. And so they decided to test him, and they said, Rabbi, the Jewish law is very complex and interrelated. Perhaps you could maybe, if you're such an expert, stand on one leg and summarize the whole thing for us? Yeah, Jesus, I know, says the young lawyer. Everybody knows that story. We all get it the first year in school. So he stands on one leg and he says, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength and your neighbor as yourself. Everybody knows that, Jesus. In fact, I told you that this morning when we started this interaction, because you asked me what the law said, and I told you, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength, and your neighbor as yourself. Why are you just parroting my own words back at me? This is not helpful. And Jesus said, calm down for a second. Calm down. Think about what Hillel said. Think about what you told me. Forget about the neighbor and self part of the question right now. Just follow me here. What's that first part? What's the first part of the great commandment? You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And Jesus said, there you go. And the lawyer did not quite get it yet. And neither did I. Now, I know we're Unitarian Universalists here, and we all have varying relationships to the God concept, God or no God. And I want us all to get on some kind of similar page as we move along here. So let's turn on our UU Universal Translators. Let's get the algorithm going this morning. And try this on for size. Another rabbi, Rabbi Michael Lerner, author of The Left Hand of God, has posited that the word for God that shows up in the Hebrew Scriptures, Yahweh, Y-H-W-H, Yod-He-Vav-He, the Holy Tetragrammaton, there's your 50-cent seminary word for the day. The word for God is actually a very complex conjugation of the verb to be. And the conjugation is that which is becoming that which shall be. A process of becoming. That which is becoming that which shall be. Or perhaps, as you like to call it, the interdependent web of all existence. Or just to get that down to some shorthand, all that is. All that is. Love all that is with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. Here is the great paradox, the great mystery of the self. Here I am, standing here in this moment with one lifetime. This is it. One show only, no encores. This is what I'm gonna get. An individual, inextricably connected to everything that has come before me, recent history and not so recent history, back to the Big Bang, and intimately connected to everything in the present moment and to everything that is going to come after me, to my posterity, to all that is still becoming. And in all of that, tied to all that is. Or let's call it for today, the neighborhood, the definitive article, neighborhood. All that is. So I am standing here at once, gifted by everything that has come before me, and thus a gift in some way to everyone here now and everyone who passes after me. Much has been given, and so much must be given. I am at once an individual and also integral to the neighborhood. I do not stand apart from it. And the commandment, the great commandment, though it kind of gets separated into two parts, all of that is interrelated. Heart, soul, and strength is not a bullet-pointed list. It's all interrelated. And that's the lesson that Jesus was trying to impart in that parable, is that love of neighbor and love of self is not an if-then equation. If I love myself, then I can be capable of loving my neighbor. If I love my neighbor, then I can be capable of loving myself. I think if we spent any time with our own hearts, we know it doesn't really work that way all the time. It's a feedback loop. It doesn't have a beginning point or an end point. Love of neighbor is love of self. Love of self is love of neighbor, and it just keeps rolling on and on like that. To love God is to love the neighborhood, is to love the self. To love all that is to love yourself, because you're a part of all that is. I'm sorry. You're in it. We're in it together. And once we have accepted that, once we are able to embrace the fact that it's all connected, that love lives in that feedback loop, that it is part of the web, that we are a part of, the choice to love really becomes no choice at all. Because either you are loving and giving your loving energy back into that web from which you have received it, or you have cut yourself off and become a dead node in the matrix. Those are the ways to go. So, once we have accepted that fact, all that's left is to ask, to what degree shall I love all that is? And that's the question I needed to ask. And that's the question that the young lawyer is looking for in my little parable here. How shall I love? To what degree shall I love? And the answer is fully, with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And this is a fascinating use of words from the Hebrew Scriptures on into the English. In Matthew, in the parable, in Deuteronomy, where the Great Commandment first shows up, the heart word in Hebrew isn't just necessarily the muscle pumping away here in your chest. It's not just the proverbial source of our love. It's the entirety of our inner being. The core of who we are is the heart. So love with the core of who we are, that's where it begins. All our passions, all our thoughts, all our yearnings, all our dreamings, that's what we're gathering up in order to get our loving energy together. And then, beyond that, to love with all our soul. Now, in the Christian scriptures, which are written in the Greek, that soul word is psyche. And we think of that word as kind of a description of our personality, our mental state of being. But for the ancient Greeks, psyche was the totality of the person, not just the inner life, but the outer life as well. It was inside and the body, and the way that our yearnings and our dreamings and our thoughts are translated into action into the world. It's how we behave because our inner being calls us to that loving place. It's love with the core of yourself, love with the totality of the self, and then love with all of your strength. And this is where it gets fun. In U.S. Bibles, in the English language, that word is often translated as strength or might. And that word has some power to it, but it feels limiting, right? Like it's just about some kind of physical capacity we may or may not have. In the Greek, the word they would use would translate more properly into English as power, which, yeah, has a little more oomph than strength. It feels like there's something active going on with that, but also power is something that can be easily abused. So maybe that's not the totality of what we're looking at here. In the Aramaic language that Jesus would have been speaking, the word is translated as wealth. You should love with all your resources that you have at hand. And yes, absolutely, we should. But again, that's very siloed. That's a very limited definition. So we go back to the Hebrew of Deuteronomy. And the word that is used in the Great Commandment in Deuteronomy, in the Hebrew, is not a noun. And it's not a verb. It's an adverb. Or at least that's how it's used most often in the Hebrew Scriptures. It only shows up as a verb twice throughout all of those Scriptures. And the adverb is meod. And the word means very. To the extreme, to a high degree. Love all that is with all your heart and all your soul and all your veriness. That's tasty. Love all that is with all your heart and all your soul and with the very veriness of you, extremely, exceedingly, explicitly, tremendously. And we see that message repeated by Jesus throughout the scriptures. He's always giving examples of how to do that. If they ask you to go a mile, go 2. If he asks for your shoes, give him your coat 2. Double down on the degree to which you are loving. If you think you've taken it far enough, you haven't taken it far enough. Love with your veriness. Not just with your inner being, not just with the totality of your being, but with everything about your being you might not even have thought of yet. With all the words you have yet to speak, with every nod to a stranger on the street, with every meal you share with a friend, with every tune you sing to yourself in the shower in the morning, everything that could possibly come out of you, you shall love with. Love with the very veriness of who you are. So it's not a bullet-pointed list we're getting in that commandment. It's a series of progression. Love from within and without, from within and without, and with everything we haven't even thought of yet. It's like flags waving for all of us to see. Are you getting my point, says the Deuteronomist, says Matthew. This is the big point of the whole story, everybody. Love exceedingly. That's the whole thing. From within, from without, from the very veriness of the depths of yourself. That is how we are called to love. Even as Unitarian Universalists, even as UUs who aren't too sure about this whole God thing, no matter where you stand, the call to love still stands. Love with the wholeness of love. Be you to the fullest, casting it into that web, into that crackling energy. With all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, with all your mind, Matthew adds, with all your ways of loving, with all your ways of being, in every moment of every day, with every gift you have been given before you got here, and every gift that you are to what shall follow, you shall love. That love is not egotism. It is, excuse me, in the words of Rebecca Parker, choosing to bless the world. Choosing to be a participant in the ongoing craft of creation that comes out of the love that we share. Because the web is alive. It is crackling with our energies. And if we don't love ourselves into it, then we risk the web just becoming a cobweb, sitting up in the corner, gathering dust. Beating like a great heart. The young lawyer walked home from his encounter that evening, feeling like his question had been answered, but also not really answered at the same time. And I kind of feel the same way myself. He didn't get the parable he was looking for, and I certainly didn't find what I was looking for in my own search. But perhaps he found something better. And I think I did too. And I think maybe we did together. The question wasn't answered, but we walk away with a challenge. Love all that is, from within, from without, from the totality of who you are. Love with all your heart and all your soul, and with the very veriness of who you are. May it be so. Bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us, and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.